Welcome back. Welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast studios. And y'all know I'm always saying, like, yo, I got somebody that's real important here. I got somebody that's real special. All right, now you getting past special and important, and you getting he not an OG because like we too close for age and that, but he definitely one of my big homies for really a whole lot of the work that he does and being somebody that's like always been cool, but making connecting to community cool, being with the people cool. And when I say connecting, that's what the man does. T. Wheeler, how you feeling today?
Man, I'm phenomenal, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, I'm already with it. And you know, this been a long time running because like Lord knows, like even before Detroit is Different was what Detroit is Different was, you were one of those people, like when I said I wanted to start this and connect people to ideas and like, yo, there's a lot of cool people in the city that do give back and they're brothers. And people be like, where are they at? And it's like, T. Willer and you know, people be like, oh, I don't believe that. You know, so now we can get into that, believe that story and really see what I've seen for a long time even outside of basketball, way more in community, more so. So let's start there. Your Detroit story, your people. How did y'all get here, and how many generations deep?
At least two to three.
Okay.
My grandmother, they came from Alabama and was residing over on what's called D Street. This is where the GM, the Cadillac plant is right now on Clark.
Okay.
In Michigan, that area was on D Street. Then we moved from D Street to Vinewood, which is where my grandmother's house is to this day. So I grew up in that home pretty much my entire life, with the exception of sometimes I was staying with my mother and we moved around the city a little bit, you know.
So your grandparents, where was your grandma from? Whereabouts? Were they in Detroit already, or did they come from the south, the north, the east, west?
Well, I know my grandmother, I think she was here already. I think my granddaddy came from a small town in Alabama.
Okay.
I can't recall the town, but he came up here and he was, for my entire life, he worked at Great Lake Steel at the plant. Didn't have much formal education, but taught me a lot about working hard for your family. I just recall, man, when I was about 10 or 11 and my little cousins was running around the house and he was like, come here, boy. He said, no matter what's going on in your life, kids don't understand when there's no Rice Krispies, when there's no bread in the house. You as a man got to make it happen. So that always stuck with me about work ethic and making sure you take care of home.
All right, so you spoke of Vinewood, man. That community is definitely something entrenched, West Side for sure. I'm immediately thinking of my alma mater, Northwestern, and like running in and around that way. So like it intersects a lot of different communities and neighborhoods. Some people would proliferate that as like this is the gang activities and activities and so much more. But in that era, it's still a lot of culture over there too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I think about growing up and coming from Vinewood in Michigan all the way to Vinewood in McGraw, because we lived on both ends at a time. Okay,
okay.
So my grandmother's house is Vinewood in Michigan. My mom lived at a time on the boulevard in McGraw, which is one block over from Vinewood, and I played at a park that I used to call Ames Park, right there in Vinewood and McGraw. Coming to find out a couple of years ago, I'm telling the Northwestern cat, I'm like, man, I used to play at Ames. He said, there's no such thing as Ames. I'm like, yes, it is, Vine. I play there all the time. He said, it's really called James. The J fell off and your people never put it back on. True story, bro. My man Walt.
Hilarious. All right, so that is very Detroit of it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that definitely puts you with like, I mean, we're gonna definitely talk basketball, but I'm guessing if you were around there, you ran across Kurt Jones.
Yeah, ran across. You run across a lot of legends and pioneers from I learned from everybody. I'll say this. I'll say in my entire life, I've learned from drug dealers, bank robbers, winos, hobos, whatever you want to call them, all the way up to scholars. You can learn from anybody. Everybody has value, which is how we get to name our turkey drive the All-Star Give Back. From the janitor to the CEO, we all got value. You can pick apart what happened in this person's life that made them get to that point. No one wakes up and say, I want to be homeless. I want to be a bum on the street. No. When people wake up and say, well, something happened. Some trauma happened in their life. They wasn't able to recover, or it could have been a multitude of things that happened all at one time. No different than a boxer. You hit a boxer in the stomach, in the head, on the side of his ribs, he going down.
Yeah.
Just like in life. Life is a small microcosm of sports, bro. Same thing.
And I'm making so many sports analogies always too, because people like, what is it? It's because the idea of you have odds and challenges against you, and how will you strategize against it? Because clearly, if anybody's ever played any sport, you're going to play people that are better than you,
Yeah.
more talented, meaning more athleticism, better access to better equipment, better everything. But you can't just walk in the game and say, I'm going to just go on and take a L. You have to say, all right, in their strengths are some of their weaknesses, and how do we exploit that?
Yeah.
And I believe life is that. So your grandparents, and you said your granddad worked in a steel plant most your life coming up. And in connecting to that, you said work ethic was always impressed upon. So was it one of those things where they were like, get busy in school? Was it one of those things where it's just like, yo, going to get a paper route? What was their flow kind of?
My grandfather wasn't an athlete. Mm-hmm. He wasn't a guy that you can go to the park with, play catch, play basketball, throw the football with. That wasn't his thing. His thing was work, 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 work. That's what he knew as a young boy growing up. So then he transferred that to my uncles, and I am an extra mouth in the family. They already had 13 kids. Oh. And here I come, bigger than the rest of them, feet bigger, wearing bigger clothes. So I'm an added expense to them. But because of the grace and mercy, man, just had great grandparents who just took care of me. They didn't say this ain't my responsibility. They knew my mother was having her drug addiction issues, and so they took me in and showed me some stability. My grandmother is she's the reason why I am as open to meeting new people and building relationships, because my grandmother was a people's purpose.
So let's talk a little bit about that, as I'm big in social capital, and it oozes off of you even. What was the type of things, like what role did she play in community? Was she the person, like, what was like a day in life just walking down the street with your grandma?
My grandmother and my mother are two of the most resourceful people I've ever met in my life. So on both ends of the spectrum. So my grandmother's resourceful in that fact that she just know how to cook, what add a pinch of this, take a pinch of that away. She was connecting people. Anybody and everybody lived at her house at some point. People, you need a place to stay, you can get you a pallet, get on the floor. She never turned anybody away. She knew everybody. It'd take her an hour to get down the block because she's stopping, she talking, she meeting people. And my mother, because of her drug use and her substance abuse, she knew how to be resourceful as well. So a lot of times when people would have evictions or fires, my mother knew exactly who to call in terms of what to say to get you a new washer and dryer, to get you a new refrigerator, to get you new housing. And so she had value as well. Just, I don't know, I couldn't tell you, brother, what trauma happened to make her go and say, I'm going to start using drugs to cope with whatever she was dealing with.
And I think that this was a topic just brought up in a more recent interview I finished with Ma Spice, Constance Davis, as her time she spent in drug counseling. And I've talked to a lot of psychologists. I've talked to different health professionals, but never a drug counselor straight on, where it's like one-on-one. Drug counseling is like the teacher, you know what I'm saying, of what that is. And I can say this, America itself has a relationship with drugs.
Absolutely.
So like the relationship between America and drugs it's just been hand in hand for a long time. So that's one thing. And really, to go a step further, it's like I think America's relationship with drugs and sex being connected to it. I'm putting alcohol in that foray too. Also tobacco into that foray. And even, as we're finding out more and more, even prescription drugs, as people can abuse those as well, and what those traumas are that lead to people dealing with what that is. And we found in our community, dealing with the challenges of that illness was definitely more criminalized in the Black community. And it was more pressures brought upon people. And in so many ways, our community still was so, I like the term you use, resilient and resourceful about how to care for family, how to still honor and keep that love, but sometimes it's a tougher love through some of those challenges.
Absolutely. And there was a system that was created to keep you in a zombie state of mind. I vividly can recall Dr. Arden, I think it was his name, on 23rd in Michigan. His doctor's office was adjacent to Paddock Drugs, which is right on the corner. And hand in hand, you go in there, and I will see people get prescriptions and go right to Paddock's and get those prescriptions filled. Sometimes them folks didn't need the Talwins, Valiants, and Ritalins. Those are the things they're giving kids today for ADD. And those folks were in there abusing the Medicaid system. This guy was coming in with fur coats and driving Corvettes, but you were polluting and killing my community. But yet you were viewed as a doctor. So what is the difference between these big companies who make billions of dollars off the backs of our people who are traumatized, but yet you want to criminalize those who sold marijuana? You want to depict Terry and Demetrius Flannery as the worst ever, but yet you give my people Vicodin, you give my people all type of things that will at some point be to their demise.
And it's interesting you bring that up because even the ways that it's looked at and during that time. So we can just dive right in because when we talk about the crack era, that's you
all day.
I mean, that's all you. And people talk about like it's like a night and day. Like, oh man, crack changed everything. And there were some very particular things just due to like sentencing and the ways of like, I believe the black community can use what happened during that era of like, I would say really like 82 to maybe like 1996 as a hell of a lesson. To the point where, like, I tell a lot of people, like, yo, most guys I know that were teenagers, and I mean all of them, even the most square dudes, if you were a teenager in the 80s and a black dude in an urban environment, like, even some of, like, doctors or judges done pull me to the side, like, yeah, man, I was getting off a couple rocks. Because it was that prevalent in our community, and seeing younger people be the carriers of it due to the changing in the drug sentencing, like, people responding to the ways that, you know, what's happening, the resourcefulness. And somebody like you at the pitch of that, I want to bring something else up that I speak to when we talk about crack, because it's brought up often as something that's impacted all of our community and many of our families. It was actually, I want to say, the death of Len Bias that changed so much of the scope of this. So when we think of Len Bias, you as an athlete and what that means, and for people that don't know, hell of a basketball player in Maryland, like almost said to be, this would have been the person that will rival Michael Jordan. A lot of people say like, oh, this person's going to rival Michael Jordan. No, this was like the person that even like everyone said will rival Michael Jordan, number 1 draft pick, drafted by the Celtics.
So think of just a smoother LeBron James.
Yes, and like almost like in celebration of his draft party, straight fish scale cocaine. And at the time, like I like the earlier episodes and seasons of Snowfall because it frames back to like cocaine in the right perspective, as cocaine was seen of opulence, like of success. It's like, hey man, we doing this at Studio 54. This is what all the stars do, the movie stars do. And now you get a cheaper version in crack. Like, hey, I want to be like stars, and I'm not gonna do nothing as crazy as freebasing. This seems like, you know, I smoke weed. Why don't I try a little bit of this? And not understanding where things happen, that death triggers so many other things that built the Just Say No campaign, built in drug sentencing. And certain things were crazy. I mean, I'm a kid and I'm noticing it, but a lot kind of starts from that Len Bias. You're playing basketball at the time.
Yeah.
What was the whole echo of how things responded? And do you even think at the time, and when the community was saying we need to do something like this, was the thought process what would end up happening with the drug sentencing that locks up half the community.
Yeah, I don't know if they were even that visual in terms of what the sentencings would look like.
Yeah.
Knew something had to happen because him being of stature.
Yeah.
However, where was the outcry when my aunt was on heroin?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now it's, hey, we got to lock up everybody with opioid. They was getting locked up. It was criminal.
Yeah.
To your point, it was criminal when it was in the black community in terms of drug usage. They were looked down upon when doctors and lawyers and accountants were sniffing blow.
powder.
Yeah, it was no problem. It was all good. It was a luxury drug.
Opulence.
Yeah, opulence. And so Lynn Byers' death as an athlete, you like, man. And so as an athlete, one, then as a person who grew up with family members who had substance abuse, I would never, man, if I ever die, and when I die, if there's drugs in my system, somebody put it there because of what I've seen, what I've witnessed, and what I've experienced with people who I love being on drugs. I would never have intentionally put drugs in my system. And so Lynn Byers just kind of was that extra nail in the coffin. Like, man, this will never happen for me, man. When I go to parties or whatever, when I was in college, if I sit a drink down, that is no longer my drink. You know what I mean?
And I also want to lift this up because it was also said in that era, and I mean, one of them will open up and like hell of a Detroit athlete. But just that era of like the late 70s to the early 80s, and they even talk about this in Jordan's Bulls. What was that? The 10-part
Last
series.
Dance.
The Last Dance. They talk about just the amount of cocaine use in the NBA. Spencer Haywood is who I was speaking of, and his recovery is something that we definitely applaud. But it was said like, yo, these guys are just getting high.
Yeah.
And like too high. Like it was just a known thing of like what's happening here. And I mean, it was in football too, like, but it was just a known thing, as we say, of opulence and what you do, of like it's almost hard to like put in the right frame for most people to understand, but that was there. And I think that death even changed how certain athletes looked at it. What was kind of the you definitely had that response, but what was the take? Because did you all even notice that some of the guys that were older than you may have been using and still playing?
I think when you think of an NBA player or NFL player, you're thinking that this is an exceptional and an elite athlete.
Yeah.
Because you have to be elite to even make one of those teams. Even your worst player that people think are bums, they're not bums.
Oh yeah,
they're quality players. They just don't fit in the rotation. I think that initially you're like, man, how could this happen? Like, so much potential, so much upside. But this is probably something that people indulge in regularly, and no one ever thinks it's gonna happen to me. No one ever thinks this is my last hit. This is just the time, my last drink or whatever. I'm gonna go. They don't think about that. They just think that I'm enjoying myself. And the accessibility. One of the things that folks don't talk about is the accessibility of whatever you want at the highest level. So if you want 6 women, if you want 6 cars, whatever you want, somebody's gonna go get it for you, because they're feeding into that ego. They're feeding into, I want to be next to this person. I want to be their best friend. I want to be around this individual for the perks. And so it takes real people to be around you to tell you, man, hey, that ain't it, bruh. Like, put that down, man. Or who is this person? Who is no new friends? That's why people say no new friends, because people are bringing their added baggage, their habitual ways into a circle, and they're creating certain synergies, because any of us can touch and agree for a couple hours.
Yeah.
And so you got to be strong. Like, no, I ain't doing that, man. And that's just that intuitiveness. That's that discernment. That's God speaking to you. Hey, man, maybe you shouldn't go to this party.
And so with that, I'm jumping into the social. Now let's go back to some of the personal, because we talking around basketball. Man, you were a hell of a basketball player, man. When did you pick up the pill? First off, like, when did you take to basketball, and when did you know I'm good at this?
So because I grew up in my grandmother's house, and I had a couple uncles that was really good.
Oh, so you were always playing with people older.
Yeah, so I had a couple. I got one uncle, Sean, who's 4 years older than me, and I'm following behind him. He's following behind my Uncle Tony, and Tony was like big dog in the family. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So probably around 11, I won the first championship at the boys club. Me and my man Hop at about 9 or 10. I think I'm getting there. Mm-hmm. Now I'm growing a little bit. So back then, you had the crate on the utility pole, right?
Yeah.
So if I could shoot and make that, man, I know I could be butt on the real rim. And so as I get taller, and once I beat my uncle, and I started beating them consistently and often and abusing them, and they stopped playing me,
Wow.
I knew I was headed somewhere.
Wow.
And then.
I'm sure they got a whole nother.
Man, of course, bud. Listen, bud, they ain't want none of this. After a while, and
he was fouling.
Yeah, I was fortunate to go to Southwestern High School. Man, I had a angel in my life, Mr. Pert, who, once again, when you talk about your village, my mother was on drugs. She didn't know much about Southwestern.
Yeah.
I was headed to Murray Wright, to be honest with you, because I played baseball and basketball at Pelham, and we also played at Murray Wright. Well, Mr. Pert, he said, man, you ain't going to Murray Wright. I'm going to come see your mama tomorrow. You need to go to Southwestern. I'm like, okay. So he comes over on a Wednesday, man, and tells my mother he don't need to go to no other school but Southwestern. Perry Watson getting them boys in college. They're good kids, blah, blah, blah. Me and my mother jump on the Joy Road bus, go to Board of Education. She said, sit down. Came back out with a piece of paper. Here's your transfer. Changed the trajectory of my life, because now I went to Southwestern, and all those guys, Antoine Jobert at that time was the #1 high school player in the country. Yeah. You had Bill Jones. You had guys that was balling. And so I knew that if I just stuck and stayed, listened to Bingo Bates and Coach Watson and followed the program and followed his blueprint, it was going to be my turn. And eventually it was my turn, and ended up getting heavily recruited, man. I had pretty much my pick of where I wanted to go to college, man, and chose Arizona State University, which was perfect for me to be able to go out west and see something different. And so Coach always had a rule. He said, use basketball. Don't let basketball use you.
I definitely got some questions in reference to that. First off, that also showed kind of some of the game your mom got, because transferring schools.
We couldn't do that.
Like,
bro.
Wasn't no transfer portal back then.
No, you go to your feeder school, you go in there. That's it.
And I'm pretty sure the coach at Murray Wright, every game, he was like, you supposed to.
You know what's funny, bro? Is he's since passed away, but I run into his son, Galen, all the time.
Yeah.
He said, man, every time I see him, he said, man, you broke my daddy's heart. I said, I didn't mean to, man, but this ended up working out better, man.
So I know that was contentious. I know he was like, double team him.
Yeah, man.
So Perry Watson, legendary figure in Detroit history, definitely Detroit sports history. What was it like being in there? And then Perry Watson was real cool. Like, I met him a couple of times when I had my sports show. Like, what was it like going in there that first practice, just winning his approval over? What was the flow? Man,
first of all, that's very difficult, because Coach is a perfectionist, and as an ex-player, he has certain demands on us. Wanted you to be the best, and he always talked about winning at the game of life. And the reason we wasn't always the best team every year, but we were damn sure the best conditioned team. Mentally and physically, you were prepared.
So go through the off-season workout.
Oh my God, bruh. This is it. The off-season. So he would always say that players get better in the summer, teams get better in the winter. So at the end of say school ends right now, but in June, he'll give you a workout sheet. This is what you need to do specifically to improve your game. You need to dribble left hand every day for 200 dribbles. You need to shoot 500 jump shots. Whatever it is, this is what you need to do. This is in adjacent to us playing summer league basketball. So you got to do this on your own. You find the time in the morning, whatever you find the time, you got to get this done. And because you will see gains and improvement from certain players from June to September when we come back to school. You'll know who's been working on the game and who haven't. And so his expectations was high, but he is my father figure, man. I don't make a major decision in my life today without talking to him and getting his approval, because I know he means he has the best for me. He wants the best for me. He is a person that has done his job. Anytime a man sacrifices the summer to take little poor kids to Rensselaer, Indiana, Millersville, Georgia, to basketball camps that we couldn't afford without his relationships, so that you can be seen and recruited by college scouts, he's done his job. And so I could never, ever repay him with money. I can only repay him with deeds, man.
So with that, that's interesting that he did take that time. So he gave basically a personalized, this is what you need to work on for every player.
Every player.
So each player had something different
Yep.
of what you needed to tighten up, and he had a solution for how you could tighten that up.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like you say, the proof is in the pudding. He could easily tell,
Yeah.
you didn't do that.
Yeah, you playing around, and then so man, he was just he was the right person in my life at the right time. I mean, held you accountable. He was tough on you. Wanted you, man. We would get a progress report, brother, on Monday. But you need to have this back by Friday with all your current grades signed by your teacher. So he's trying to get you prepared to win at life for that next level. He don't want you just to be a hood legend. Oh, you was good in basketball and that's it?
Yeah.
Now you got a lot of life left, man. I need you to win at the game of life. And so when I think about all the players that played for him, that graduated from college, that went on to become VPs of Marriott, rest in peace to Ray Bennett, Tim Demings, who was a top pharmacist at Kroger, dudes doing things all over the country as a result of coming up under Perry Watson and having a good coaching staff. And all our assistant coaches had their degrees. And so he's showing you how important education is. It is your passport. It gets you in the door. And then from there, your work ethic and the person that you are takes over. Man, he has never, ever led me astray, man.
Deep.
Man, I love him to death, man. There's nothing I wouldn't do for that man. I am standing here as a black man, never been shot, never been to prison, as a result of people like Perry Watson, Ronald Perk, Cheryl Harshaw, those folks that stood in the gap when my father was absent, my mother was on drugs. These are the folks that helped fill out my Pell Grant. Coach would sit in on you on every college visit because you didn't know what questions to ask. My grandmother didn't know about what questions to ask for your scholarship, but Coach knew. Coach knew what question, and he could decipher from there, is this a good school for you? Because maybe they don't have the services that you need. I'm leaving Vinewood as a poor kid going to Arizona State University, which is a rich institution. Can you make it out there? I never wanted to be the athlete that went away, played a semester, and came back home.
Came back. It's many. So
Yeah.
so back into that, I mean, Southwestern becomes a basketball institution while you're there too.
Yeah.
Like for the nation.
Yeah.
Like number one
Oh, man.
in the nation.
Oh, man.
Multiple McDonald's
Yeah,
All-Americans.
rock stars, yeah.
What was it like being those rock stars? Because the thing is, as they say, heavy is the crown.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like right now, for those first two games, I mean, we're watching the playoff era. Like the Denver Nuggets, like Minnesota was like, hey, we taking it to you. Because I assume every team in PSL was lacing them up
Man.
tight. Like, oh, they got the schedule, and it's like, oh, that's when you play them?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You got a bullseye on your back every time. And so you have to be a little bit, you have to have, your dysfunction has to be so high that you like, I welcome that. And so that was part of your preparation. And so for me being functionally dysfunction, that poured into me, bro. I was on that like, okay, come on, get some of this here. I'm ready for you. And so you knew that going into the jump ball that they trying to knock your head off. So whether it be, this team could be 0-12, it could be a Kettering, it could be a Renaissance, it don't matter.
Yeah.
They're trying to beat you. And so those who were fortunate to beat us, we learned from them, man. But I tell you what, I do not regret my decision. I played in championship games. I won championships. We played in front of thousands of people. We traveled up and down this state, man. And I met great people. And this game of basketball took me around the world, man. I played in countries like Brazil, Venezuela, Argentina. I've been all over, man, playing basketball, brother.
Now, in this playing basketball, you get a lot of friendships.
Yes.
A lot of friendships with rivals, and then the competitive nature, because that's the other thing about athletes that aren't like, I play, but I'm playing just for fun. But athletes, that competitive nature stays strong.
Yeah.
And filling that with something else you're passionate about, which we get there too, which you still passionate about everything. But like, how does that still play off? Like,
man, it is. So even to this day. So let me just back up, man. My senior year in high school, we were 27-2. I lost 2 games. Both were championship games.
Wow.
I lost one to Northern, the PSL championship, to that bum named Derek Coleman. Okay. I lost the state championship to Terry Mills, that bum out of Romulus. No, they're my boys. But they had so the Achilles heel to the press is somebody in the middle who can make decisions. So both of these guys are 6'10", 6'11", They can see over the court. They can handle the rock, and they made great decisions. They were able to make the press vulnerable. But to say all that, man, we played in championship games. Derek Coleman is my brother that I never had.
Yeah.
There's nothing ever I would not do for this man. I've seen this guy go in his pocket and pay for folks' light bills. I've seen this guy let kids drive his Rolls Royce to prom. I've seen this man just do a lot of things when most folks wouldn't do it. Most folks would have just took off and never came back. So I've seen what he's done with his community in terms of housing and wanting to create job opportunities for our community. So I have been fortunate to establish great relationships with Gary Payton, man. Just a slew of guys that I played with against in college. Terrell Brandon, Harold Miner. These guys who were dope players. And then you compete against them, and you know the synergy is just there, man. Gary Payton comes to Detroit all the time. He thinks he's from Detroit.
Hilarious.
Yeah, he go to Cutters.
Hilarious. Yeah, you definitely a Detroiter if you're in there, and I can see GP in there.
In there.
So now I guess that brings up that's where we met.
Yeah.
We met through DC back when the court and all of the stuff he was doing over in the North End. Originally, Ken Harris had me over there for something.
Yeah.
He was like, you need to come over there with T. Wheeler and Coleman. And I'm like, for real? I'm like, they gonna be over there?
Yeah, man.
And that was like I was more when I was doing more hip hop stuff, and Low Lewis and them were like, yeah, we gonna do some music stuff. And I'm like, one second, who's the, I guess similar to like what I'm doing with Detroit is different. I'm like, it's like, who's the foundation funding all of this? Like, who's doing? It's like the said foundation is us.
It's us, man.
We're gonna pour back in. And since those journeys, then I've kind of like kept like in the back of my mind like the trends and tracks of everything you and DC have done, even with larger stature. And it hasn't been as easy as I thought of getting things going. And Lord knows that's why I was, I think, a little bit more prepared for some of this stuff from observing all the stuff you all have seen. Because when people say, like, you got a grant for this? And it's like, I mean, I've gotten some support, but for the most part, this is all off the muscle of my for-profit that comes into my nonprofit. Or you can call it a nonprofit, but really this is just what I'm doing because Black Voice needs platform.
Come on now.
The way that you all were moving in like the early 2000s, pouring in, and not necessarily getting the support that I thought made sense and that you all thought made sense. How have you all since then like stayed so committed and learned how to be with the people, even knowing that sometimes the infrastructure ain't gonna be as supportive of being with the people?
Man, when there's a part in the Bible, I believe it's Romans 8:28, when it speaks of all things work for the good. So I can tell you, man, this is derived out of pain. So when I first moved back home in '99, I was calling 100 black men profusely. Hey, man, can we be a part of your mentoring program? What we need to do? Who we need to talk to? I'm calling these the president's. What's the guy name? GM guy, Farmer. I'm calling Jim Farmer. I'm calling somebody else. And then Karen Dumas is trying to put me in with people who she know is the president. I'm calling them. Nothing happened, brother. Even to this day, some 20 years later, nothing happened.
Wow.
So what we did is I said, man, forget that. We know enough people on our phone. We're going to start slowly. So we started small and started just connecting the dots, building, using our own resources, our own revenue. I still get told no to this day, bruh. And we done a whole bunch of stuff compared to others.
I mean, I'm shocked because I'm having that back because like even back then, I never knew the start was like, okay, collaboration first.
Yes.
Because I remember the court, because like if people don't know, it, like first off, like not that far from I guess this ages me too. Not far from this institution, Herman Kiefer, that people make jokes about, but it did a whole lot of other stuff than just STD testing. You know, it actually was a huge hospital at one point in time. But over there, it was a basketball court that you all ran where it would be like business training, food giveaways. You would allow rappers to rap.
Yeah.
You would allow kids to perform. Like it was like a whole
it's a life
outdoor
skill set.
community.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's right
asset.
there in the hood. and you had fiberglass backboards. I mean, like it was
Man,
top
it
notch.
was it
Top
was
notch.
like
It
a
was no
good.
it's not no rinky dink stuff because at the end of the day, every time, why is it that when we are doing things in our community, it should be less than? No, no, no. We have to get to a point in our community where we accept less and expect more. Not the other way around. And so for us, it was like, man, we're gonna do this thing ourselves. It might take a while, but we're gonna get there eventually. Next thing you know, you got 2 or 3 more people touching and agreeing, and you be consistent in your work. All of a sudden, now here comes somebody out the woodwork who wants to partner with you because you've been consistent. And so I just put our heads down, man, and just kept rolling. And then you started talking to the community. They'll tell you what the best people to help poor people is to talk to poor people. They'll tell you exactly what they need. Powerless kids need powerful friends. They need somebody to go out and advocate for them. Because guess what, bruh? Ain't nobody successful by themselves. Somebody got to nurture and support your greatness. You ain't do it till somebody prayed for you. Somebody gave you a couple dollars. Somebody gave you a ride. Somebody mentioned your name in rooms that you haven't even entered yet.
Yeah.
So I dare we get to a point where we can't talk to our own people.
Wow. So do you think, and I guess it's hard to speculate on how and why, but I never knew you hit the ground running looking to collaborate first.
Yeah.
And then after said, oh, we got to do this independently, take initiative.
Yeah. Because see, bro, not to cut you off, fam, but what happens is when you notice now, as you're going for these grants, man, it's a lot of bloated bureaucracy. It's a lot of stuff in there that ain't necessary. I don't need to give you a dissertation. Are you going to help or you not? And if you're not going to help, get out the way. So we just started calling people on our phones. You start calling the Chauncey Billups of the world, Gary Payton's, Rasheed Wallace. You start calling friends that you have in other places and say, hey, man, this is what we doing. Can you get down with it? Oh, man, hey, go, I'm going to send you this. I'm going to send you that. And next thing you know, you start having resources. Man, we've gotten more support outside of 313 than you ever would imagine, bruh. Nas ain't from here. He sent a check. Will Downing ain't from here. He sent a check. D.L. Hughley ain't from here. Sent a check.
That's deep.
But yet, there's some folk in here that's...
That's very deep. As I always say, like, cast your net bigger. But like I say, I've been following the track because I was one of those people in the community that was accessing the resources because even to this day, it's not a lot of stages for rappers to perform on. So it's unorthodox, but it's like, oh, rappers need to perform. They can perform over here on the court. You know what I'm saying? So it was unorthodox, but that became a real good cipher. That was a good... Yeah, you had to be a good MC to get there. It had to be clean, but you had to be sharp with your bars.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that. And like I say, since then, it's like I've always just from the outside in, and you still stand so connected. So 99, you come back, your thought process as you're reaching to collaborate and then taking that initiative. What's the energy? How are the stakeholders too? Because when you get into this work, sometimes, and when I say the stakeholders, meaning like family, friends, it seems kind of crazy that it's like, I'm gonna commit myself to the community. And it's like, all right, what are you doing? That sounds good, but you can do that on a Sunday, but not every day. How does
it's and I'm gonna tell you something, it's not without its challenges. Because what happens is I'm talking about just in your relationships, with your family, with your girl, it's a problem sometimes because the commitment has to be unapologetic. You have got to commit and you cannot waver. And so because I'm coming from a childhood poverty, I'm coming from a place of pain, I've experienced it personally, this stuff means something to me, bruh. This ain't no game for me, this is real life. Because so many people have helped me. I dare that I get to a point in my life where I don't look back to help somebody else. And so just was relentless in that pursuit. Like, okay, and like once again, I go back to my dysfunction, my trauma. So once you tell me no, oh really? We're gonna prove you wrong.
wow.
Oh, so then there's a hit list on the board. Oh, this company said this. Oh, we're gonna show y'all. Okay, we're gonna keep sending you stuff because you're gonna see that we doing good work out here.
And I've always, like I say, it's always been good money my way. Like, a couple years back, I pulled up on you and a lot of food being given away because during the pandemic, River Rouge was one of those choke points that was not getting access to food.
Yeah.
How did that all come together, and how did you embrace that call to action?
So right when COVID hit, and school was out. You know, a lot of kids. So school is not just a place of higher learning, an institution to translate education. It's childcare. There's food being distributed, breakfast, lunch, or whatnot. And then those after school kids get a little bit more. So once they closed the schools, and I had students calling me saying, "Hey, Mr. Wheeler, we hungry." I said, "Okay." I had a friend of mine that owns a Popeyes. I had another friend that owns a Hungry Howie's. So I went to the superintendent. I said, "Hey, this is what I want to do." They gave me the blessing to go ahead and go out. And so we called it We Love You Fridays at first. It was called We Love You Fridays. I'm taking chicken sandwiches and from Popeyes and pizza to your house. Once I get to your house, I'm like, dang, hold on. Frazier got more people here than I thought he did. He got 7, 8 more people. What else can we do? Made a call out to Kirk Mays, who was a friend of mine for many years. And when this is, once again, having a good name, keeping your relationship solid. I knew Kirk when he was at Brightmore Lions. Now Kirk's CEO of Forgotten Harvest. Hey, man, we need to have a food pantry downriver. This is a food desert. There's no place to really eat. Folks are on their knuckles, man. We need some help. He said, okay, I'm going to send a truck. Trucks are coming out every Wednesday. And what we committed to, brother, we committed not just showing up when it was good, not showing up just when it's sunny. We had volunteers that was out there when it was raining, when it's cold, when it's hot and humid, not complaining, but understanding the mission, understanding that if we don't show up, these folks don't eat. And so we were able to pass out over 15 million meals to the least of thee. And here's what's more important than the food is your attitude when you're giving. Not looking down on people, less judgment, more help. It could be any of us at any given time. We're one phone call, one email away from your life being different. So who am I to judge somebody because you in line? And oftentimes what we will see is people who have found themselves in line for the first time ever. They're new to this. So they start breaking down in the line. They started becoming more and more emotional because they never could forecast themselves in line. They've done everything, quote unquote, the right way. Say they're at the company for 20 years, all of a sudden the company lay them off, or you lost a loved one. So we started figuring out how do I just pray for you while you in line? To say, man, tomorrow's gonna be a better day. We have people who are suicidal. We have people who are depressed. Anxiety is high because milk, a gallon of milk was costing at one point more than a gallon of gas. So where's the trade-off? Do I buy gas? Do I buy milk? What do I do? How do I help with my utilities? So everything we've done with our giveaway has been surrounded by having a plethora of partners to meet the needs of the people. To meet the needs of the people, bruh. At the end of the day, the face of poverty is no longer the bum on the street. It is the working poor. It is the person that makes too much money to get help, but not enough to survive.
That's deep. So in that also committed you to seeing some things differently, approaching things differently, because you took on a new task, and even running concurrent with that, you're still in a social justice mission too, kind of where we overlap with Attorney Fortner, because if people aren't aware, I mean, to say that police in the black community don't get along would be like saying the sky's blue. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a contentious relationship because back to how we started, kind of like the criminalizing of black people struggling with the illness of addiction, the criminalizing of black people as solving the problem in any black community because of the cultural misunderstandings. I'm going to put it as that, even though I know that the framework of this nation is based in a framework of white supremacy. As I mean, I too often say, the design of America is for white men with businesses and property. And the further you get away from that, the functionality is going to change. And at the root of it, it was some challenges there in River Rouge, but it's been some challenges in a lot of places. But specifically, cities like River Rouge, places like River Rouge, where it's smaller forces, not as large populations, and really a lot of misunderstandings about what's going on. Like even today, like when T pulled up, he was like, yo, I ain't gonna sit in front of a person's house unless I know what's going on. I was like, yeah, man, pull in the driveway. Like that's a like, you from the hood culturally and you know what's up. And And when I say like don't park in front of a person's house, I mean it's not like explicitly you cannot, but it's just an understanding. When you from the hood, you just know not necessarily, but then it's like, okay, I need to still even be invited in the driveway because also we don't know who's coming and going and all of that too.
Yeah.
But these are like those slight things that sometimes when you got that uniform on, tensions can go from 0 to 100 real quick.
And it's funny that you said that, man. We had a program where I did lunch with law enforcement. And so I would bring in DPD, FBI, different law enforcement agencies so they can sit down with kids over lunch and figure out how do we work together. There's some kids who want to go in law enforcement because I grew up in a certain neighborhood, I can't be the man. And so we need to be able to figure out how do we break down some of these barriers, what the do's and don'ts are when you get pulled over, and then allow officers to understand where these young people are coming from. So that therefore there's a communication where we can talk to each other. And just because I don't comply don't mean I should die.
Yeah.
You know, give me the same grace you give someone else who may be of a different skin complexion. You allow them to curse at you, allow them to run away, and why they never get killed? How is it that a disproportion of people that are shot and killed look like me?
Yep.
And so, and I'll say this, and I'll say it till I'm out of this world, is that there's no man that feels the anxiety that a black man feels when he's pulled over. Even when you got all your tags, your license, your registration, because we're not praying for a great cop, just want a decent one. One that's just do your job. If I ran that red light, just give me a ticket. If I'm speeding, just give me a ticket. That does not give you grounds to put your hands on me. Does not give you grounds to use excessive punishment. You could just talk to me, and like you would do anybody else.
And definitely, I mean, I assume it's even more pressure for somebody like you in DC because you're also a larger black man in stature. And it's like, I mean, I ain't small, but still I think also that plays a different role of intimidation and thought process because this is incepted into what we believe in the fears associated with like the nature of how to not just like de-escalate things. And like you say, you know, you see as I say, like the white skateboarder, you just think, oh, hey, it could be no problem. Whereas you see the black kid with the hoodie, rest in peace, Trayvon.
Right.
You thinking, oh man.
And then when you have, I had an incident. I was in Ohio, coming back from Ohio, getting right towards Findlay, and a guy pulls me over and he said I was speeding. And I'm like, okay. And I'm talking to my sister on the phone, got her through the car phone, and the next thing I know, man, it's two other cars show up.
Yeah.
With a dog.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, why are you pulling me over? You were legal lane change, he said. That's what he said. Legal lane change. I'm like, man, there was an 18-wheeler on my right. There was an SUV on my left. When did I do all that? So, make a long story short, the shorter cop was really trying to provoke me. He was really trying to figure out how do I get up under him so he can say something so we can cuff him and then put hands on him. And I said, man, you have to be able to have a skill set to get yourself out of that situation and be able to get home to your family, because there are some that don't want you to have the rights that you have.
I mean, I just, and I went Facebook Live, and it was like I just didn't have the time because I had so much other stuff going at the time. But state trooper just pulled me over on Linwood a couple weeks back, and it threw me off because it's like, man, a state trooper pulling you over on the street, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, seriously? And with the same reason why I was zip tied and arrested in Ohio, he was like, the tint on your windows goes down further than this, and it's like, seriously? Yeah. Man. Like, how can you eyeball that the tint on my window is further than 6.5 inches, quote unquote? Right. Like this is excessive. You're fishing. You believe that I could have I assume probably more than likely he's thinking like drugs or guns in the vehicle too. And then like the timing, and that's where like shout out Attorney Fortner is somebody that stands up for justice for people that are dealing with these issues and harassments that where those misunderstandings become life or death situations. Or here we go, the classic thing. If I get pulled over, I immediately think this is going to cost me time and going to cost me money.
Yep.
I'm not looking at it, and that's best case scenario. Best case scenario is going to cost me time and money. Worst case scenario, I could lose my life. So, like, when you say the anxiety is high, it's definitely high, especially when they say stuff like what you said. It's like illegal lane change. And it's like, okay, you got to think back to when and how and where and how you respond. And, you know, now I'm classic, you know, I'm Facebook Live every time I get pulled over because I'm like, at least this may solve something. But then you see Philando Steel and it's like, it may not solve everything.
Yeah, I got out I put my hands out the car.
And even knowing that, like I gotta do
hands out. I stood out on 75 with my hands in the air. Guy was like, "Put your hands up, man. Listen, if you're gonna kill me, you're gonna kill me in front of all these people."
Yeah,
that's kind of how I felt. I felt like, you know, once again, why are black men met with such contention? So this has to be a policy issue.
Yeah,
because you don't meet everybody with that same vigor. You don't meet everyone with that same approach. I've seen and heard other men degrade officers, and there nothing happens.
You got that right.
Nothing happens.
I mean, just even the, you know, like most of us as black men, we're looking at the I guess the NFL draft goers break the barricade, thinking to themselves like, we know it ain't a lot of brothers doing that. Because the thought process, like we just even think like, hey, breaking the barricade.
Yeah, man.
Because so in social justice, feeding people, connecting to the other thing that you're keying, and even your role right now, education.
Yeah.
And you spoke on this a lot of times. What's been the hook to stay with the little homies? And you actually interact with teenagers where a lot of people are like, oh, the patience you need.
Man, I love them. You know what? Number one is I know that there was a point in my life where I needed adults. So when a kid gets to school, they've done their job. The children's success is predicated on adult participation. Any and everybody who interacts with kids from 7 to 3 or 7 to the time that kid come home, you have got to be an advocate, a champion for young people. If you're not, and you have the inability to do that, please remove yourself because the cost is too high. I'd rather you err on trying to make sure impact now the kid's life than doing nothing, than sitting back and allowing that kid to make a plethora of mistakes when they could have avoided it. I knew how I grew up and how many adults in the building helped me, spoke to me and talked to me and helped me through tough, difficult times. And so I always wanted to be a champion for young people, always wanted to be able to let them know that they can make it in spite of their circumstance. It is not your conditions, but yet your decision-making that determines your destiny. And had it not been for young people, I would not have had the strength before therapy to talk to you about my mother's drug uses, to talk to you about having a father that I've only spent 4 hours with my entire life. I wasn't strong enough. And it happened, Fraser, because I'm over at Palmer Park Academy one year for career day. And I'm talking to these young people. They're asking me a bunch of questions because these young kids recognize real. They recognize authenticity and genuineness off the rip. They know when somebody's playing them. They know when you're real. And I'm starting telling them real stories, being evicted, blah, 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 going into the refrigerator, nothing's in there, cutting the light switch on, DT's cut off or whatever it was. And so a kid asked me a question, well, how did you know you was going to do this? Took me back to a story my grandmother told me. We're getting ready to play. On Saturday mornings, I'll play a 1300 Bobian for Jake Boyd Roadrunners. Getting ready to play BJ Armstrong and then for the championship down 1300. My grandmother gives me bus fare. And she said this to me one time only. She says, little ugly boy, you're going to do something great with people. I had no idea what she meant, but I love my grandma so much, I believe whatever grandma say, that's what it is. So as I'm speaking to these kids, that story came back to me. My grandmother had actually prophesied over my life. She saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And so I don't take this lightly, man. This is my life. This is it. I don't want to do nothing else. If I had to go and sell cars or do Achilles heel surgery, I couldn't do it. But
All
when it
right.
comes being a champion for people who are less than, the least of thee, I'm on that.
I love it. I love it. So we get into a close. So now at the close, I too like basketball too
Yeah.
much. I gotta ask you some more
Come
basketball
on, man.
questions. All right. The game has changed completely. Like to the point where like right now it feels like it's the 3-point contest.
Yeah.
But even in the changing, it's still very exciting. You were a star in PSL basketball at a height and when the culture was different.
Yeah.
That Cobo Arena era.
Ooh.
You know, and now you're back at DPS.
Yeah.
Right. What's your vision for like that energy of bringing back some of as things have changed, you know, the structure of high school basketball has changed, but like women's basketball or girls basketball and boys basketball, DPS, it still is a heck of an institution.
Yeah.
What's your vision
Man,
right now of
I
something
would
that you think that
I
would
would
be
propose to the athletic department, to the superintendent, game of the week. Got to bring back game of the week. I'm talking about your best four. You got you might have your best 2 girls programs playing at 6:00, or have the boys play at 6 and the girls play at 8. Don't matter to me.
Okay.
But you got your best in an environment like at a Wayne State with that new gym they got over there at Wayne State,
Yeah.
or at WC3D, where you got it's geographically accessible for people to get to. You want to have a fan bus. You want to create a buzz.
I like that and in it because it was like an era.
Yeah.
Like I talk about like those stadiums, like the courts. So like a lot of the courts were those real old school courts that were built, I think like in the 60s, where you would have some bleachers and then you would have like a second set of people standing just watching the game upstairs of the indoor track.
Yep.
So like McKenzie, Cooley,
Yeah.
Western had that, and like you could feel the energy like just rocking in those courts. You know what I'm saying? And some of those rivalries.
Yeah, the hot box. Cody, they right on top of you at Cody. They right there on you. And I remember playing at Cody, man, and we playing against Monty Holland and them cats at Cody. And Cody at that time they probably had some of the best looking young ladies in PSL, number one. And they had a whole bunch of people. I don't know what they was doing for money, but everybody had on nanny goats and sheepskins, right? And they were looking at you like, you better not make that shot. I mean, it was just intense back in the day, man. But I remember us playing, Southwestern playing King at Callahan Hall. And Derek Coleman them played before us. They played Murray Wright. And the ball, we warming up, and the ball goes out of bounds, and it goes over to, I think, Derek Cousin Pokey, and I'm going to get the ball. They talking, and I'm talking. We ain't even playing them yet. We got to win this game first to get to them. But that's the competitiveness that we had. You know what I mean? And that's what you need, man. Kids need to be able to compete.
So I like that energy. And what's your take on this? Because it's often talked about, but AAU ball, because that's completely transitioned. I know it was there when you were younger, but now it's taken on its own, like, it's like a whole world now.
Yeah, it's a whole nother league. And I think that it was a space for it. When I played, number one, those coaches, Jake Boyd and Gaddy and all those guys, man, they had regular jobs, and they would come get you after work or whatever. You'll play with them for a small period of time. Not during the season. You playing with them in the summertime here and there, but it wasn't like, okay, I'm gonna play AAU and I'm gonna play for Southwestern too. No, I'm playing for Southwestern. So I think now it is morphed into a whole money making thing, which dilutes those who really have your best interests at heart. And are you doing what's best for the kid all the time? Then you put the shoe game into it. So now kids who team is sponsored by Adidas, I can't go to the Nike All-American camp. Why not? Oh, because I'm an Adidas kid. No, you're not. You are a free agent. You ain't with nobody. You know, you got to use basketball to get you to a certain point. I think if you got the right coaches, and because that coach is so pivotal in your life, that's a father figure, that's an uncle, that's somebody that's a confidant That's somebody that's spending a lot of time with you. And if those individuals did their job, you'll be great.
So that brings to the next discussion. That's a Michigan discussion now too. NIL deals so name, image, and likeness deals for high school players. What's your take?
I think it's long overdue, man. I wish we had NIL when I was in college, because
high school,
okay,
not college.
Well, high school. Okay, we go high school. I'll say that if you can go out and partner with people, you're teaching kids business principles. You're teaching kids about relationships, being on time, and you are a brand. Your conversation starts before you enter any room. You are partnering with people the rest of your life, because no one can do everything by themselves. It's teaching you about responsibility. It's teaching you that you are special. And if I'm a person that you believe in, and you're going to pay me to pitch this product or to have your logo on my jersey or for me to do a commercial, I should be fairly compensated. We have no problem with teenagers playing hockey, with teenagers playing tennis. We have no problem with that. So why do we have an issue when young black kids want to go and make money off their name, image, and likeness? It shouldn't be a problem. And to go, I know we talk high school, but even college. So if Nick Saban is making 10, 15, 20 million a year, Urban Meyer and all the rest of these coaches, how do you dare not want me? Because one injury, as a person who's tore a posterior cruciate ligament. So at any moment, this thing can end. You got your house paid for, you got access to private jets, you're making money on top of money on top of money. Allow me to get compensated as well, because my body will never be the same, brother. My hands will never be the same ever again. And I love the game of basketball. I'm not saying that this shouldn't happen. It's a matter of time when it's going to happen.
Yeah.
You playing on wood, you playing on asphalt. Look at all the training that goes into it. So just like myself today, if I went somewhere and they say, well, T, can you make this happen? And I make it happen in 30 minutes. You ain't paying me for the 30 minutes. You pay me for the 30 years I've been doing this, Pi.
Been working on it.
Come on, man.
I'm with it. So now here go the last the last basketball question. This is going to be the one that gets you in hot water. Then we get to the classic Detroit is different questions and close out. All right. So I want your all 80s DPS squad, top 5, non-Southwestern. So at least it saves you, it reprieves you of the people from Southwestern. Who would you say 80s?
80s. So 80 at the point guard, I got to go Darren Brown, Southeastern. Sugar Brown.
Okay.
I got to go Demetrius Gore, Chadsey. Derek Coleman in the middle.
Okay.
Nate Bunton, Murray Wright. Ooh. That last guard position is a toss-up, because I'm going Carl Brown. Carl Brown Renaissance. Carl Brown was tough. 5'8", shoot that thing quick. Oh, man, it was a walking bucket. Yeah. Now, what was the second question?
Okay. All right. I just wanted to know that, because I was going to say, if you could put Southwestern players on there, I already know.
Okay.
We know it's going to be all Southwestern. You know what I'm saying? So definitely, you're more than welcome. And this is long overdue. If any announcements or anything, T. Wheeler, always support from me. So it's extended in Detroit is different. More will happen. I like that game of the week idea.
Man,
I think that's something that I'm gonna echo and put out there. And if that happens, I'm gonna want Detroit is different involved somehow in that, because that would be a great concept of a girls' game, a boys' game. That would be hype.
You talking about, so Renaissance has one of the top programs in the state, right?
Yeah.
If you had a Renaissance versus Depsa, okay, then you got your classic Cass King or whoever that other boys game is. You're getting the best of both worlds, man. You got the top girls. So then with that game, you go in and invite scouts. Come down here, so you got both right here who can be seen by. That's the whole plan, is for kids to be able to have an opportunity to use sports and don't let sports use you.
That's deep. I like that. I like that idea, and I think that's something that functionally that can happen.
Yeah,
that could really happen. We gonna weigh that bamboo. Yeah. I remember, if you've ever seen so as much as I love sports, high school basketball, even more so than football. Sometimes with high school football, if a league gets taken place, it's like it's over. High school basketball may be the one like college has swings. And nowadays with the threes have swing. High school basketball can really be like a team can come out and it could be in the first half, I don't know, 15 to 55.
Yeah.
And that team that got 15 in the first half can end up winning because that crowd, that energy, that I don't know, it's just like a different feel.
But to your point, so think about that. So that is basically saying that it's life. It's a mirror image of life. If you're not a good steward over your resources, you can lose. Sports is one of the things where you can be down by 3 and win by 2, up by 15 and lose by 10, because you were not a good steward over your resources. And in life, if you're not a good steward over your resources, over your finances, over your relationships, over your workplace environment, you're not a good steward, they'll get taken away from you.
Yep. I've brought it up all the time. Like that classic Cooley Reffer game.
Yeah.
Both them schools. Yeah, boy. I've never seen Willie Green's brother Ben.
Yeah.
Was
man.
amazing.
Yeah.
Rest in peace. But
Yeah.
like, man, oh man, like
Yeah.
that was a good Reffer team too. 'Cause
Yeah.
Coach Mack was
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
special.
Yeah.
But still, it was like,
And you got them games that you'll never forget. Like I said, I was supposed to go to Murray, and then for me to come back my senior year, let me tell you how they played us, bro. They hated Southwestern so much that we opened up the first round of the state tournament at Murray, right? And Murray had a whip.
wow.
I got 8 underclassmen with me and another senior. Man, get on my back and we going. I hit 2 free throws, got them out of there at Murray.
Oh man,
Man, loved it, man. Loved it. Close that gym down, man.
Hey, close that gym down and was rushing to the bus to leave because
The bus started the keys up about the referee giving me start that thing about the referee giving me the ball. Quit playing, man. You know what it is.
gotta get out of here because Murray Wright. The energy at Murray Wright.
What?
If it ain't Murray, it ain't right.
Come on, man.
All right, so classic Detroit is different questions. Very first car, year, make, and model, year you got it.
Oh, my very first car was a Chevy Cavalier.
Okay.
Stick shift.
Oh man,
I got it in 1988. Yeah, and it was like it might have been an 85 or something like that. Yeah,
Okay.
a couple years older, yeah.
Okay, how many times you popped the clutch?
Man, you know what's funny?
What?
Is I didn't even know how to drive a stick shift before I got it. My man taught me, and I just worked on it. So I ended up getting it, and never had really any problems,
Wow,
man. Yeah,
okay,
stick
okay,
shift, yeah.
okay. That's
that way, man.
So for people that don't know, I mean, right now cars are so automatic with
But-
Teslas and stuff.
Well, let me tell you this, though, fam. I drove it from Arizona to Detroit.
Wow.
Me and Derek Coleman had a basketball game at the Saint. The next one took me 2 days, fam. I drove home, woke up the next morning, my car was stolen.
Oh man,
Yeah.
I was gonna say usually a stick shift is the people ain't gonna steal it. It's usually
Stole
a
that
deterrent.
boy, man. Stole it.
Oh man,
Yeah.
which, I don't know how I ain't asked you nothing about the Saint. Just give me some words on the Saint
Man,
and
the
what
Saint,
that is.
the Saint is where you earn everything. I think about the Saint when we were playing against Mark Macon and them from Saginaw Buena Vista, and you out there competing with the best, and you had to show up because guess what? The neighborhood was there. So the neighborhood buses. Oh man, he good, he nice, he so and so and so and so. So you wanted to be in that conversation. You had to earn it. And Hot Box, but Sam Washington, rest in heaven, was a visionary who created that atmosphere for us to be able to be seen by those college scouts. And so it's wonderful, man.
So for anybody that watches like me, I love basketball. NBA TV, it's an excellent documentary on Iceman where St. Cecilia's uplifted in that and so much more. But and first off, Iceman, one of the coolest people. I mean, I only met him twice, but one of the coolest people ever. I mean, I know you probably
Dopest poster ever created. Sitting on ice cubes, man, with 2 balls, man, just super dope. I mean, I saw the documentary, and when I heard the greatest idolizing George Gervin, when I heard Michael Jordan talking about how he couldn't stop Gervin, I heard Magic, Jerry West, and people that spoke highly of Ice, your peers, man, that's all you could ask for, bro.
I love that documentary because it really is as much as it's about him, it's him through the lens. It's it's like him through the lens of Detroit. Because Detroit's story is so interwoven in his story. And the old heads used to tell me the stories about him and how he was dropping 80. And it's like, man, no, he wasn't.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, I guess some of
Without
this
the 3,
is true.
without the 3-pointer, think about it. Without the 3, And I don't know if you go back to that documentary, man. Ice is wearing Cartiers back in the day. Ice wearing Yays back in the day. I said, Ice man, always been fashionable. Yeah, he Detroit, man.
And it just cool as ever
Yeah.
because like the way he dribbled and moved, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? He's one of the old cats
Yeah, man.
that you can watch even to this day. That like when you talk about players, I think that would adapt very well in the game today. Man,
Yeah. He'll score 100 easy.
Yeah,
You couldn't guard that dude.
Yeah. Oh man, you know what I'm saying? The way they was hacking back in the day.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
tough
it is.
defense.
Yeah, they was fighting.
So all right, next Detroit is a different question. You're the DJ at the end of the fireworks. You get to play 3 songs. Woodward and Jefferson. What 3 songs you playing?
I'm starting off with Woodwork Squeaks and Out Come the Freaks.
Okay.
I'm gonna play that. I'm gonna play probably More Bounce to the Ounce.
Okay.
Then I might just bring it up a little bit with Rakim. How Can I Move the Crowd?
Oh man, that sounds like everything that was played in the Cavalier. That's the Cavalier playlist.
Yeah, man. Gotta put that old Zap. Yeah,
Okay.
More Bounce to the Ounce.
I'm still tripping at both y'all tall as ever driving all the way to Arizona. That's a young
listen,
people thing.
Man, what? We done been in worse, brother. When you see him asking what happened to him when me and him went to Canada, when you see DC asking, man, see what he tell you.
It's like I can't believe it's like that's young people stuff. You'll drive across the country or drive back for a game.
Listen, man, that dude done been through some wars, man. That's my brother.
Oh man. It's like y'all like Rocky at the end of the movie. What's that? Him and Apollo. It's
Yeah,
like I wonder
man.
the one-on-one tally, the competitiveness.
Just some real, man, and I'm going to say this about Lefty, man. We were having a meeting at a restaurant right there on Northwestern. Is it Baco? Baco right there by the little fitness facility, by the Franklin. And we was having a meeting, and I had got a call, and I stepped out, man. My sister was calling, and she was calling profusely, so I'm like, going to check on what's going on with my sister. She calls, and she tells me that my mother had been put out of the rehab, and she had no place to go. So I said, I'm in a meeting. Let me call you back when I get out of here. I'm going back to I'm trying to get myself together, man, get my composure. I go back in the meeting, man, and we get done with the meeting, and the big fella like, T, what's wrong? No, everything good, brother. Because everything's good. I'm just playing it off. No, man, something wrong with you. What's wrong? So I finally tell him, man, look, my mama been put out of the rehab, man. We done been everywhere, big fella. I said, man, I don't even know where I'm going to take her, man. I said, we done been everywhere in the state, man. I don't know what to do. Man, my mother, Derek Coleman, went in his pocket, man. Gave me every dollar he had and said, man, go help your mama. That's my man, yo.
That's deep.
That's my man.
That's deep. Another brother. Like I say, both of you are. I remember consistently because that summer the ciphers kept going, and every time out, both of y'all were just present with community.
Yeah, man. We man, you don't. I was talking to somebody, man. I'll be forgetting some of the artists that we had on Linwood and Taylor. I saw an old picture of Paul Wall. We had he was before he was 2 Chainz, he was Titty Boy. Had him, had David Banner, Mano. Oh man,
But I'll tell you the one I love the most. Cause he was the one that got a lot of us over there and like really gave it the stamp. Rest in peace, Proof. Proof was over there.
Your man's with Tip, what's his man's name? Skating on ice like Chrissy Yamaguchi.
Young Dro.
Yeah, Young Dro. Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah, man, just dope. Man, just be able to create an environment for young people.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, it's still sadly to this day, like when people be like, why don't you rap? It's like it's not enough stages for rap in Detroit. And it's so sad, especially right now in this wave of like Detroit rap being like a pulse of all of rap. And it's like when you think of venues, it's poor. You know what I'm saying? Like I haven't even been rapping actively in a long time, but I know if I go to the Bay right now, it's like about 7 stages just from my days I used to rap. I could get on probably in 2 days.
Right.
Whereas when people call me to this day, like, hey man, what can I do? It's like, where can you rap?
Right, exactly.
Y'all feel that need, and that's a need that obviously, since I'm speaking it up, We gonna figure out something.
Right.
You know, we gonna figure out something. We got to get some rap stages, and Lord knows it's time to pour
It's
in.
time.
You know
Yes,
what I'm
sir.
saying? And last question: you could rename Woodward after one Detroiter. Who would it be and why?
One Detroiter, Woodward. Man, I love Woodward because Woodward tells a great story of economics from downtown all the way up. I would probably name it after Perry Watson. Just because I think that he is one of the greatest men I've ever met in my life, and all the young men that he helped mold and took care of and nurtured to be upstanding adults. I would name it after Perry Watson.
I love it. I love it. Coach Watson, like I say, a Detroit treasure, high on that list. High on that list. And another one of them people that's just mad cool.
Yeah.
T. Wheeler, thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you.
All right. Peace.
Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.